Welcome to the Psychology Talk podcast. We are your hosts, Dr. Scott Hoye, clinical psychologist,
and Kyle Miller, licensed counselor. Psychology Talk is a unique conversation about psychology around the globe. We speak with psychology experts to keep you informed about current issues and trends. We advocate toward reducing stigma and educate about mental health.
While you're listening, please take a moment to give us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, or your favorite streaming service. It helps us to continue providing you with quality programming. And now, enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today, my guest is once again Margot Esther Borden. Margot is a psychotherapist, author, and executive coach. Today, she's here to discuss her life as a digital nomad psychotherapist and how those of you who are therapists and healers might be able to find yourself doing that yourself. Welcome to the Psychology Talk podcast once again, Margot. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Scott. It's good to be back with you, and I'm looking forward to this. Maybe a more fun and lighter and more sort of sharing my resources and my experiences as a digital nomad psychotherapist. I have been contacted after publishing my story on Medium.com, but also every time I find myself in a milieu with colleagues, everybody's like, "How do you do it? How do you do it? I want to be a nomad too." So it's like
okay. So
a lot of us want to get our offices.
So there's a blog post or an article you've written?
Yeah, on my Medium page.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So, and that's tell us a little bit about that, perhaps.
Well, it started out just sharing the fun and adventures and the freedom and I guess if I were to write a sequel, I would also write about the practicals. You know, there's a lot of things like, you know, licensing, insurance, banking, visas, the whole. I mean, it's a vast universe, and being a digital nomad, there are a lot of really wonderful things and some loopholes that need to be addressed of how to, like, the year before the pandemic, I was 2 months in Bali, a few months in the US, so a few months in Mexico, and then sometime in India.
Wow.
You know, and how do you deal with all of the, you know, like, so my motto is have internet, will travel.
Okay, well, tell us maybe a little bit, maybe you can give a précis or in a nutshell, talk about your story that's in the article and maybe expand a little bit upon that since you published it and some of the details that you're talking about there that might be practical for people.
Yeah. So I started out traveling as a kid. My parents would take us on adventures, and it's not like they booked a holiday. It's like, let's drive to the border of Mexico and get on a train.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, we don't know where we're going. Let's just go there and find out. And so I got the travel bug, you know. Mm-hmm. And when I was 19, I went to Europe and just started traveling. And I was supposed to come back to the U.S. at the end of summer, and I stayed in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I lived there on and off for 21 years.
Wow. Where did you live, and how did you stay there for 20-some years?
Well, at first I had to become a student to get a visa, so I was doing it on the fly. I hadn't planned. It was spontaneous. I sold my ticket back. In those days, you handed your ticket in it was the TWA office, and they gave me cash.
Wow. Yeah. Nice. You probably could live on that for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I sent a telegram to my mother and said, I won't be, don't come to the airport. I'm not coming home. And I enrolled as a student, and, you know, you make it work. And then, so those were the early days. So just to give you a sense of being nomad is my nature.
Okay. So it wasn't hard for you to make the switch from being a landlocked therapist to nomad therapist.
the only time in my life when I was listed in the phone book is in in 2001. I bought an apartment in Paris, and I started a practice in my apartment. I had two entrances, and one was my office and one was my apartment, and I stayed there for 15 years and ran my psychotherapy practice on site in the expat community. So I had maybe 50% French and 50% expats from all over the world.
Okay. Are you a French speaker?
I am.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm perfectly bilingual, so that helps.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And it was wonderful, and I was suffocating.
Suffocating. It was wonderful, and you were suffocating. That sounds.
I needed to
kind of like you were stuck.
My wings were clipped.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, what do I? And I'm sitting in my apartment on a dark Paris evening, sitting next to the heater, and I get this email from this company in Israel, out of the blue, saying, "Hey, do you want to build an online practice?" And the company is called therapyeverywhere.com, and that was in 2012 or 11. And I still have a working relationship with them. They manage my website, and they come up with the goods. A lot of internet companies, they say, let's do this for you, and then they never show up or whatever. But they've been fabulous. They built my website. They update it from time to time, and they help me with my marketing. And then I decided to leave my apartment and hit the road. And so I had this fantasy, and I call it Siddhartha syndrome.
You mean like Gautama, the Buddha? Yeah.
Yeah, that I take my keys, leave my apartment, hand them to the first passerby on the street, and go off into the sunset. Okay. And it worked. Okay. And a year after I put my practice online, I left my apartment, handed the keys to an Airbnb manager, and went to India on a one-way ticket.
Wow. Did you sell the apartment eventually? Because this was a while ago.
Eventually, I sold it.
Wow. And you went one way to India, and you went right to Bihar, right?
I went to, I traveled all over India.
Okay.
And I realized that I was earning money online, and everywhere I went, I met people who, when they found out I was a psychotherapist, began to confide in me and ask me for help. And so I spent 6 months traveling all over India and staying in families, doing like systemic interventions for free.
How cool is that?
And earning my money online so that I could be there and help people. And I consulted in huts on the Bangladesh border, and I consulted in all over India, just whoever asked for help.
What you must have picked up a smattering of languages there, some Hindi, maybe, right? Oh, okay. And then so, like you also. You probably also like were immersed with these families, so they trusted you more, right, to do the therapy, which the common parlance is that Southeast Asian and Asian families and individuals they're more collectivist, so you oftentimes will get a family in the office to do the therapy, at least in the first couple of sessions. So you didn't beat around the bush; you went right to the house or the hut.
Well, I had been coming and going from India for many, many years, and had been volunteering in a clinic in Calcutta. So I was used to the Indian mindset, and also had been steeped into the Indian religions. And so I felt like I could easily set foot into the worlds of the people who came to see me. And understand, like, speak their language, not always physically, but in terms of understanding their
social
mindset.
dynamics and cultural dynamics. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Okay, good.
So this meant that I realized in a kind of just organically that I could, as long as I had internet, be anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And show up for my sessions. And, every once in a while I'll spontaneously take a flight and be in a different time zone and have to contact everyone and change our schedule. But, people are pretty tolerant.
Well, as long as they get what they're looking for, then
right.
They're happy. They're happy clients, happy consumers, as they might say in some parts. So what was like when your wings were no longer clipped, the shackles were no longer keeping you in Paris, which is a terrible place to be shackled to, I'm sure. What was it like for you? Like, how did you feel once you set foot on that plane and touched down in India?
I felt like I was myself again.
Okay. How did it change? Okay, sorry to interrupt, but if you felt like you were self, you were probably more congruent with who you are. How did that change your process of doing therapy? Do you feel that it can improve your ability to do therapy with people?
There's a couple.
I mean, not to say that you were bad at it to begin with, but did it shift something for you internally?
On one hand, I had to learn a different way of working because I had been doing a lot of breath work and cathartic work, and I began to work with a more mindfulness-based sort of inner journeying and
rather than body-based or cathartic. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to work in a way that was, conducive, and you have to screen differently the people that you decide to work with. If somebody's more likely to be in a crisis, you want them to work locally. You don't want to be working online.
Yeah.
And also, the first people who contacted me when my site went up were all of them people living in isolation. Those, I forget what the Japanese word is for the people that don't go out.
Okay.
They just become
I know what
too
isolated. Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
It was interesting to see the people make that first contact, build a relationship, and then start to engage with the world again.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
The other dimension was energetically. As a therapist, it took some adjusting. I felt that working online was at first it was exhausting. It was there was no exchange of energy in the same way. So it took some adjusting.
As it has for a lot of people. I did some work with expats and folks living abroad online, so I had kind of a feel for it. But certainly the shift from in person mostly to all online when the pandemic struck was a bit of it wasn't difficult for me to deal with the technology. I had a platform, but there's a different energetic shift. And now that I've had a few people coming back into the office for some of my patients and trying to work around a dark hour here or there so that I can air the office out from any potential COVID cooties, if you will. I really see the difference and enjoy that energetic shift.
Yeah. And one thing I have done in that light is when I'm near. I had a client in Buffalo, New York, and when I was in New York, I took the trip to Buffalo and made sure that we met in person. So I do tend to, if I'm in someone's neck of the woods, I will always make an effort to meet my clients in person, which is fabulous. So,
oh yeah, and it probably it adds a new dimension to, to the work you do. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So then we come to the freedom and the realizing, I can just, again, kind of live out of a suitcase, which I have to admit I thrive on, and I feel free and good, and just make sure that I, plan enough ahead so that I, am able to make it to my appointments, and my practice online has grown to 15 different countries on a weekly basis.
Wow.
I have people from all over the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so,
I
mean, that's excellent. So you're, what do you think is like the best thing about being a digital nomad psychotherapist? Like what's your favorite aspect of it? I'm guessing here that you're going to say being able to go wherever you want.
Yeah, just being geographically free, which really fits my nature.
Mm-hmm.
When I realized I was leaving, I planned 3 months ahead so I could, ease my in-person clients into the idea that their therapist was taking off, mm-hmm. and not to be physically present, and I felt so bad, and I didn't want to tell anybody, like I was afraid that it would be hurt, like difficult for my clients to accept. And, but I decided I had to do it. I think a colleague reminded me, you're following your heart, mm-hmm. and you're taking a leap of faith. And I think your clients will be happy for you. And that's exactly what happened. People were like, I'm so happy for you because I'm walking the talk. I'm following my heart and pulling out all the stops and following my, honoring my nature as a nomad. So one of the things that happened when I realized I was leaving, and I did plan 3 months ahead to ease my clients into the fact that I was going to be working online and not in person, is I felt incredibly guilty, like I was going to be hurting the therapeutic relationship and the trust and all that. And a colleague pointed out that actually I was following my heart, and that my clients would probably be happy for me. And that's exactly what happened, is that I said, I'm going to be moving my practice online, and we'll still keep working together if you'd like, but I'm going to be geographically remote, and people were happy for me, but most.
And you were surprised.
Yeah, very pleasantly surprised.
Isn't it? It's so interesting. We think of ourselves as we're put in this position. There's a power differential between us and our clients, yada yada yada. But there's so much back and forth that actually goes on in the consulting room. Right. And the most powerful relationships you can develop with your client is when you're having a synergistic effect with each other, I think.
Right.
No matter what that means. That could be the client's presenting problems being very indistinct, and you have to work with them to finally hit upon what their issue is so that they can clarify why they behave or act in a certain, or experience things a certain way, or just the back and forth where those impasses, those edges where we both struggle as client and therapist happen, so that getting through the impasse, you can grow together and figure out, and also they worry about you. They think about you. There's been experiences where I've opened up to them about issues that have been going on with myself, and their capacity for empathy is quite empathic.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful that in the end, we're just people walking alongside each other, and And I absolutely, as you see, I use the word client, which is coming from the person-centered approach. It's not about me being the expert on anybody. It's about me helping people become the experts on themselves.
Yeah.
We have the skills and the perspectives and the experience to walk alongside people, but we're all just people in the end.
Yeah. I think that, just to kind of break off a little bit here, psychologists often use the word patient, and I usually do in my psych notes, whatever, and, but, one of the most strongest advocates for thinking in terms of working with a client rather than thinking of people as just a patient was a book that I had in graduate school called In Our Client's Shoes. And you'd think that would be a person-centered book about therapy. Actually, it was about psychological testing and how you can reframe the testing as a way to walk alongside the person and really unfold the dynamics of their internal process, which is usually when I do that, it's exactly. And
this is what it's about. And that's the healing aspect, is relationship, relating.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it takes that personalized kind of experience of the helping professional with something that can be as I guess clinical or cold as diagnosis. Yeah.
Yeah. And how can clinical and cold be healing?
Correct.
How does it make somebody feel safe and heard, which are the bottom line, the most important things that they need, that we all need? And this cold clinical thing definitely has never been my cup of tea, but I'm sure it has its uses. I don't have use for it, but
well, I think we could probably take a hint from the anti-psychiatry movement and probably say it's probably a holdover from the Habsburgs, and trying to, just like education was supposed to be a way to get people to follow along in a factory, education and healing was like getting people to behave in settings and figuring how smart they were for placement in a military lineup. That's unfortunately, but you do what you can to shift that. Getting back to your article, which we will have a link to, which probably will get more hits now that I think you mentioned to me there were like a bazillion hits upon this, right? People have downloaded it.
It's my most read piece on my Medium page. Yeah, definitely.
A lot. Okay, so, and as well, there should be, because it's very concise and some bullet points about what happened. But you did an inventory for yourself. And that inventory had areas like physical health, your practice, your ability to take time to be able to spend time to write, right? Personal and social fulfillment, etc., meditation and spiritual growth. Maybe you can kind of run through that practice and what you were seeing, the pros and cons of being landlocked versus what you were hoping being a nomad would help you to do.
Well, nomadism isn't for everyone. And I think we each have to honor our nature and our calling. And if I'm sitting in my practice in Paris and, feel great during the day, I'm working with all my clients. But if in the evening I'm, frustrated and it's not, the energy isn't flowing, my personal life, my inner life wasn't nourished by living in it, and like being tied to this apartment and this practice, and so I took stock.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
what's going on here?
How was it not? How did you know it wasn't being nourished? I mean, you did mention you knew you were a nomad, but was it going back and doing like a life review of when you felt most yourself, most? It was just taking stock. What are the elements that make up a life, and our body, mind, soul, spirit, nature, and society, if we want to use Wilber's sort of point of view,
And I sat and I assessed my life on each, how am I doing, how's my health? How's my emotional fulfillment? How's my intellectual fulfillment? How am I doing financially? How am I doing socially? And all of these things, and realize that, I wasn't ticking a lot of boxes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
I was living a practice, and it was all, it was fabulous and all, but that was the only element that was giving me fulfillment. There weren't the other elements were missing.
Wow. So
yeah.
It sounds like you looked up and from whatever you were writing down, or you had an epiphany and said, I'm working in a therapy factory, sort of. Right? It's like, I'm in a therapy factory. I know you weren't, but like you probably had some of that. You thought you were escaping the 9 to 5, but it became.
I think we could say more. It was a sense of, and where's mine?
Okay.
Where's my happiness and fulfillment and fun and. And okay, yeah, you can never, ever be in a bad mood walking on the street of Paris. Every place in Paris is beautiful. But, like, there was some fundamental elements of fulfillment missing.
Okay.
And so and that's when this company got in touch with me, and I was like, oh, my God, like, yes. And I never imagined that I would be becoming a nomad again when I accepted to build my practice online, and then it kind of came organically, and there I was on a flight,
Okay, and how long did that take? There must have been some trepidation. You had to weigh, do a cost benefits for yourself, right?
Actually, I think I did make an Excel spreadsheet at one point about
okay.
Can I do this?
Okay.
And I realized that actually life costs less when you're a nomad if you have simple needs. You don't have all the mortgages and the. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Because we broke up. Yeah.
Perfect.
I wasn't sure at first. It took a year of being a nomad to realize that this is actually going to work, and I can just relax and enjoy myself, and I don't have to be worrying about, is this sustainable?
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I just dove in at that point. I was like, I rented my apartment out on Airbnb, and I kept my clients and those who came with me from the Paris practice, and that was it. Just move forward.
What might be some of the minutia, or actually maybe not so minute, aspects of things you have to worry about for those in the audience who might be thinking of, the practical aspects of an online all the time, from anywhere practice.
Right. So the biggest thing I think for American practitioners is the whole issue of licensing and insurance. It's something that I only deal with my American clients. Mm-hmm. In the rest of the world, it just seems to be you pay cash and that's that. Your therapy is an investment in yourself. So that I don't know how that works with the American licensing boards and all that, but that is the biggest, I think, challenge on the practical level for American practitioners.
Well, I think I can answer that to a certain degree, and those out in the audience who want to, comment below on the various sites you might be listening to, or shoot an email to me at our website. I believe this, for clarification, in the United States, since I am licensed in the state of Illinois, I cannot see someone in Florida. I could for a brief period of time, maybe a month or so. There might be like a 60-day period. Some states have a grace period, like say a patient moves to Florida or Tennessee or whatnot. There's a grace period. But technically, my licensing board only allows me to practice here, and the state licensing board of Florida or Tennessee will not allow me to practice there unless I receive a license there. If I were seeing you, Margot, sitting in Mumbai, no problem. If you are sitting in Arizona or New Mexico, I cannot see you online for therapy. Even if I'm taking cash, even if I'm taking credit from a Bitcoin or something, I can't do that. I can't practice psychotherapy with you. So that's where the problem is. However, if I was seeing somebody in Mumbai, I can see them for cash. If they're an expat and they have insurance and they're in Mumbai and I take that insurance and I can work that out, it would work, no problem. But everybody I've seen in the UAE or in Africa or wherever I've seen them, I've only taken cash, right? Or credit card or whatever, bank card.
So technically, if you, let's say your practice is based in Chicago, you're licensed in Chicago, but you're in Bali. You can't.
If I'm in Bali, I could see you if you were sitting in Illinois. Technically. So I can only see in the United States at this point in time. However, there is I believe it's called PsychNet. There's the APA is working on a reciprocity between states, so that if you. It's not the APA, I think it's APIC or one of those governing bodies that ensures that you're actually a licensed psychologist. The EPPP folks, I believe that's it, APIC. And I forget what the acronym stands for. We won't burden anybody in the audience with that. But they're working on something that would allow me to see somebody in a state that's part of that licensure agreement. And I could actually go to the state and see them in person for a period of time. Which is lovely, but that means you have to upload all your credentialing and pay this and that. It's and I'm very much not finished that process because I'm very busy with practice different issues.
It did open somewhat.
What's that?
Okay. It seems like with COVID, it did open up that first of all, most of us had to practice online, if not all of us, and so. The parameters had to loosen up a little bit around the
parameters have in the States now. They just passed a reciprocity, a parity. They forced the parity for mental health in Illinois. Parity for mental health is the same parity for any medical issue, including teletherapy, which actually will be helpful because there's plenty of areas outside of Chicago where there are no practitioners for anything. Psychiatry, you name it. So that's very good. And I think more states are doing that. Of course, there will be pushback from the providers, not the providers, but the payers. So, and there is this, we're still going back about how long that's going to continue. Many of my patients now, they don't pay copay or deductible. It's just because of COVID. Many of the insurance companies, for instance, Blue Cross in Illinois and Cigna, and et cetera, they're paying full on for many of the patients. Or there might be just the copay, but they're waiving deductibles, which is, finally they're stepping up and doing what they're kind of supposed to be doing for 150 years or whatever.
So it's a service. It shouldn't be a business.
So it's an interesting world as far as COVID. Yes, exactly. And they really are. The insurance companies are, and the mental health, the medical field is saying that behavioral health is more and more important for prevention, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a couple funny digital nomad psychotherapist stories. If you
absolutely.
So I was in Bali, and it was delightful. And it's a digital nomad haven, and there are working spaces and all kinds of things. And this doesn't happen very often, but all of a sudden my calendar gave me a beep and I was like, oh my God, I have a session in 15 minutes. And I was in a most beautiful art gallery with gardens and like jungle and like beautiful pieces of art. And I sat down in a back room. There was nobody in there. And I had a session.
No one would have heard. Yeah. You might have had a little bit extra reverb from the bathroom, maybe. Maybe not. Yeah.
No. Yeah. And another time I was driving across the U.S. and it was winter. It was one of those winters. Everything was white. And I was trying to get to the next town so I could go to a coffee shop and have my session. And I didn't make it, so I had to pull over and have the session from the car.
Wow.
And it was a hypnosis session.
What a perfect, like if you're perfectly lost in a blizzard, what a setting for you to go into trance to put the other person in trance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So,
well,
and sometimes there'll be like monsoon and I'll have to tell the client, look, internet's down. And it's happened like once or twice in all these years and that I can't make a session. Something's up.
Well, that's the nice thing, right? I mean, it's more portable. I mean, the good thing about one of the positives about doing everything online during COVID is that you're less likely to miss sessions. It's not that people have to come to you. And I suspect that afterwards, if people have problems, if they're stuck at home for some reason, you can always reschedule or shift it to online, which has happened before COVID and during COVID. But yeah, I'm curious, like many people, there's a debate amongst the professionals here that are part of the professional hypnosis societies about doing hypnosis online. Where do you draw the limits for doing that? Is it like you said earlier, more of the cathartic work you might not do online? If it's more mindfulness-based hypnosis or skills building practice, how do you do that?
So my approach in both coaching and psychotherapy is inside out. So it's always a journey inward to the core of the wounds or the beliefs or the innermost dimensions of what took the tracks or what is causing pain, causing us to behave. So it's always an inward looking approach. It's mindfulness based, works very well. And when I've worked enough with somebody in a mindfulness based approach, that's when I'll say, okay, this person is stable, their mind is structured, everything, all the parts are, everything is kind of making sense, and it's okay to do deeper work. So that's when I'll go ahead and do.
Okay, so you make sure you're kind of as always in psychotherapy, you're assessing, diagnosing, intervening each session just to see where things are at and what other information comes up. Yeah, and in that case, you're going inward, and you don't just like spill into the depths of the cave. You go gradually and
there has to be a certain amount of self-awareness, ability for self-government, like stability.
Correct.
So I can take a journey, and I also know how to walk alongside myself in that journey and make sure that I'm safe and that everything is, going well on that journey. If I just take off on a journey and I have no tools or skills or perspectives, I'm going to get myself in trouble. So that's how I assess, a client for the deeper work that I do.
Okay, but you have no qualms about doing that online, as long as you know that the person's stable enough to handle it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What other techniques have you found have been transferable to working online with people at a distance?
So, obviously, counseling, coaching. I coach executives, like in large corporations. and then again, the mindfulness. So when I say mindfulness, I think what I'm saying is it's not really a technique or an approach. It's a kind of again, psychotherapy for me as a journey inward to meet the kinks and bring light and understanding and acceptance to the places that are hurt or stuck, so that it frees up and becomes more fluid, and we can come more deeply and more fully into our inner selves and align to our inner selves. And so it's probably, when I say mindfulness, it's probably a lifetime's worth of trainings and tools that have all merged into that kind of an inside out approach.
Okay. Excellent.
It's a psycho-spiritual journey.
Okay. And it sounds like that's also, you could describe your own process of becoming a nomad therapist, right? A digital nomad therapist is kind of that same process, like getting in touch with yourself, assessing what your needs are, and saying, "Oh, I think we're going to take the show on the road."
Yeah.
Do you have any like tips or any words of wisdom for people who might be interested in maybe bumping into you in a bathroom in Bali, or I'm just meaning, doing therapy on the road, obviously.
Therapy on the road. Yeah. I would say that first, so there's so much to it. No, sometimes it can be lonely.
But that can be the case.
You're out there.
You can get extremely lonely if you're in private practice, sitting planted somewhere.
Yeah. And there can, but then if it's your nature and your calling to live a nomadic lifestyle, it's just like, but during the pandemic, there were times when it was, really challenging. And I think a lot of us nomads of all types, not just the therapists, found ourselves grounded somewhere or locked down somewhere with more or less resources and, the human element sometimes being obviously inaccessible, or, other, the visa runs out and there's no flights going. There can be, it can be challenging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would say that I'd say first we have to say, is it a dream or is it my calling? Do I want to live on the road?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something I do, or can I just take my holiday with me for a month and sit somewhere and keep my base, keep my practice in Chicago or whatever? Mm-hmm. So I think the advantage is that no matter where I am in the world, I'm available for my clients. There's never I'm on holiday. Sort of rarely do I say, I'm not available next week, I'm on holiday, because my life is a holiday.
Yeah. Well, having gone on holiday and seen patients from Delhi or Ghaziabad or Jaipur, I can say that you can still do that, unless you really want to be on holiday. But all right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I think we should probably wrap up here.
So I think it might be useful to open a dialogue with the people who are really interested and get some questions, because there's like banking, visas, all the practical stuff. Yeah. How do I live? How do I make it work? How do I deal with the moments of uncertainty, as I'm, changing my locations or, so there's the legalities that we talked about from the U.S. perspective. There's a lot to it. And I was thinking it might be interesting. So what I've often done is find myself with groups, like I did a training, and at lunch I offered a little workshop on, and so that there's more of an exchange, because there can be 101 questions. And, and it's my passion to see that people who are interested in this lifestyle can get the information and the encouragement they need to do it, because it's fabulous. It's just amazing.
It's okay. Well, do you plan on having any online workshops in the future about this precise topic?
I would be happy to do that, or maybe even have like a monthly coaching group where we all meet and share experiences and resources on how to live as a digital nomad psychotherapist. And I do know. I recently did a training in New York, in 2018, with Brian Weiss, and I offered a little to give a talk on being a nomad psychotherapist. And out of the 150 people, there were 50 people who attended and skipped lunch, and so I think there's a lot of us.
Yeah,
and I think we should band together and build a community so that we can understand and support each other in following our dreams.
Well, hopefully that community can start to, maybe this will be the seed for that to be planted, the community seed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Margot, again, for being here on the Psychology Talk podcast. For those of you in the audience, the article is Diary of a Digital Nomad Psychotherapist, and you can find that on Margot Esther Borden's medium.com page. We'll put a link for that in the show notes.
Great.
Okay. Take care. Come back soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone, and happy and safe travels.
You as well.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the Psychology Talk podcast. Did you know that the Psychology Talk podcast has a Facebook page and an Instagram page? It's true. You can find more information about other guests and episodes, as well as more information about psychology and mental health. And if you liked this episode, go ahead and like us on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, or Spotify and leave a review. It helps us grow our audience and provide more quality shows. All material, copyright the Psychology Talk podcast. This podcast is for informative and entertainment purposes only. If you need a mental health professional, please seek one out. Music is provided by the band Serenati.